What do you think is the big differences between the bottom half of those teams and the top half of those teams, say in semi-pro or in Division 2 or whatever other divisions you film? What do you think separates those teams, like that skill gap?
Communication would be another big thing. Blastcam's really good at communicating.
Very, yeah.
Everybody's talked about it already, but Jackson Fry is probably the best home player, excluding pro, in the league.
Let's talk about, while we're on this, like, I want to say depressing tone. What do you
let's
think?
start talking about what I hate.
What are all the things that you hate about paintball? Tell me the things that bother you the most.
One thing that bothers me every time I go to an NXL event, I don't know if it's just an NXL thing or if it's an every event thing, but there was not a goddamn thing that tells me there was a paintball event going on in this area. There's not a single thing.
Why are we not taking the time to develop players that we even bring up to the pro division?
Yeah, the way I see it, in like 10 to 15 years, there's probably gonna be a big problem where pro becomes like a semi-pro bracket, because all those players that have been playing for 30 plus years are gonna stop.
Matt, Dunn, welcome. How are you?
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm not sure if you heard the introduction I gave you, but it was pretty bad, so I hope you're okay.
Nah, that was pretty good. That was good. Don't be so hard on yourself. That was good.
Do you know
calling me one of the best is a really good way to get my ego going right before we do an interview. So
I actually had heard some people tell me that that's what I needed to do to get you talking, is just kind of pump you up and gas you up. So
that's the way to do it. I
assume you know who B Minor is in the chat.
Yeah, I love Brandon. Brandon, I miss you. You're an asshole, but I do really miss you.
Okay, good. I did say, as I'm sure you heard, that they're free to ask questions. I am going to save the questions for the end. Usually when I do interviews like this, I don't look at chat just because I don't like to get distracted. I would encourage you to do the same, because we will have a chance to ask those questions towards the end. But let's get into it, because I'm sure people are ready to hear. So I only know you through YouTube. I mean, I said hi to you briefly in Philly, and otherwise I have really just gotten to know you through your content on YouTube. So I would like to know more about you. Tell me what your experience is with paintball and how long you've been playing.
So I think I probably found out about paintball when I was 10 or 11. Through my sister's boyfriend. And I think I actually went to play on my birthday the next year. Just like everybody else, I invited a couple friends. We went out to a local field here in New Jersey, or over in New Jersey, called Gino's back in the day, which is now Playground. So some people might know it by Gino's if you played there back in the day. It was pretty much the biggest field in New Jersey at that point. So I played there a little bit over the years. Started finding fields in PA. Started playing there. A lot of woods ball. I don't think I played any speedball until 6 years. I don't even think I knew what speedball was for the longest time. So played woods ball for a while, and then found out what speedball was and started playing that. And I think I've 27 now, so about 16 years I've been playing on and off. So it's basically my playing life as far as paintball goes.
That's awesome. And I assume you still play, right?
Yeah, we just played. Our last event was 6 months ago, I think. Me and my team, which we didn't make it out of prelims, but the events before that we took second and first, from what I remember. And then just like local 3-mans, we played a couple of those and podiumed. But yeah, we haven't played a lot recently. Our team's kind of trying to get back into it, but we don't have the bodies to really play much. A lot of guys are working or have families and stuff now, so it's hard to get back out there, which I'm sure you can agree with.
Yeah, well, especially when you have a baby and you're married, it's tough.
Yeah, exactly.
So I that's actually awesome. I was expecting that you'd only have time to play rec ball, but the fact that you're still playing tournaments is awesome. Which team and what division do you play for?
So team name Philly Savages, and we play D4 right now.
Okay.
So
that's awesome.
We were thinking if we won the last event, we would have had to bump up, but we didn't have to worry about that anymore. So
that's good.
We kind of trashed that event, but
that's awesome. There is a big part of me that misses playing. Not that this is any sort of like talk down of anything, but I do miss playing D4. It was such a fun division, and there's just a lot of commitment that is asked of you when you start trying to advance up the ranks. And there's a big part of me that just like misses showing up to a tournament and just playing with your buddies, and it's not a big deal. And I feel like Division 4, at least for me, was that, and I missed that. But
Everybody says that.
Well, I'm sure
Everybody
when,
misses D4, man.
yeah, I'm sure when I have another baby or something like that, I'll be looking at D4. I'm only ranked D3, so I can go play, and that's great.
Yeah, you're good. Just take a little bit of a break.
Yeah. So tell me how you got into filming. Was it through paintball originally, or were you filming other things and then decided to film paintball?
So I guess I don't want to call myself a movie buff because I don't like write about movies or anything, but I've always loved movies growing up. There was a combination of things. So I loved movies and I loved war movies or just anything in general that had to do with the military, with guns, I guess, just like some kind of combat. Like that was always really interesting to me growing up. So there used to be this channel called the Military Channel where if you had it was like cable and then you had like an extra cable, which gave you like 10 more channels. The Military Channel happened to be one of those.
Was that
And
owned
I
by
love,
History? Was that like along with
yeah,
it?
I think it
Yeah.
might have been one of History Channels. Yeah. So I was constantly watching that growing up. My mom was terrified that I was going to join the military when I grew up because of all the stuff that I used to watch. But I ended up having a heart condition that was hereditary, and they found it when I was 15 or 16. So obviously you can't do the military if you have a condition like that. So I was like, all right, well, and I couldn't play sports anymore. They're like, you can't play baseball anymore. It's like, all right, cool, no more sports. And then I was like, oh, there's speedball. I was like, paintball, like nobody considers paintball a sport. I'm like, you can't tell me I can't play it. Like, I was like, the one time in my life that people saying paintball is a sport might actually work out for me. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'll go play it. So I started playing speedball, and then when I actually, I took a couple videos in the woods. Like I took my mom's like point and shoot back in the day, out into the woods, and did a couple videos. And going back into the military thing, I loved watching movies about the military. So I'm like, okay, cool. This is like the closest thing to combat that I'm ever gonna get, unless like shit boils over in the country. But
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, this will be really cool because I'm not gonna be a film director anytime soon. So I'm like, this is the closest thing I can get to filming combat and being, in combat essentially. So I did like filmed a couple videos and I was like, that was really cool. And then I took a break for a little bit because I was a kid back then. I didn't know. I didn't think it was going to turn into anything. I had a point and shoot. I had no money around this time. So I was playing speedball for a little bit, just at playground, off and on the weekends. And then I saw a guy named Streamline Images, that was his handle back in the day, who actually he hasn't shot recently. He comes out like maybe once a year or so. He used to be a big photographer around the New Jersey area, and I saw him laying down on the field one day, and he had a Canon with like a 70 to 200 on it, which is a very standard paintball lens to use, or I guess sports lens as far as Canon goes. So I saw him laying down and shooting photos, and I was like, huh. I was like, I took those videos back in the day, and I'm like, it would be really cool to do pictures as well. And I looked up his stuff, and he had some really good images. He took some really good pictures. And I remember looking at his page, and I was just like, wow, this is awesome. Like, these pictures are really good. I wonder, if I could get into that. And so I think right after that, I went out and bought like a $200 camera, like not even a detachable lens on it. It was just a giant zoom lens that went like this, in and out with a button that took 10 seconds to fully zoom in, because that thing was so old. So I guess that's technically where my actual love for shooting paintball went, because as soon as that was 8 years ago now. If I'm looking at my YouTube channel, right? Eight
And
years
that's
ago.
when you started your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I filmed for a little bit, or I took pictures for a little bit off and on, maybe for like a year, I think. And then a year after that, I got back into the filming because I actually got like I used to buy like really cheap camcorders, like $200 camcorders, because my camera sucked at doing video. So I'm like, oh, let me just buy a $200 camcorder, thinking that would be any better. So I think one of the first videos I have on my channel is actually from that camcorder back in the day.
Really?
Yeah. So that's when. So after doing photos for a little bit, I was like, oh, I'll just try video. Why not? Like, there's nothing to lose. But yeah, it started. I was definitely a photographer first, and then it turned into videography later on.
That's awesome. So yeah, tell me then. I do want to ask you some questions about, obviously your insights about paintball, because you've watched so much. You've been a lover of the
lot.
sport for so long. Yeah, more so than I think most people. But tell me a little bit about your story with growing this YouTube channel, because I just so you know, I come from a marketing background. I worked for a digital marketing agency. I love data and analytics. That was what my job was to analyze data, come up with marketing strategies. And I started a YouTube channel about 7 months ago now, and I'm just curious to know, has your growth been pretty steady? Or has it had huge, dips or whatever? Just kind of explain to me the story behind your YouTube channel and how that's been going.
So the first thing, so everybody, I guess, kind of knows me now for the raw footage, but back in the day, I only did highlight videos. I think the first 15, 20 videos on my YouTube were just highlight videos. Um, really shitty ones too. Can't believe they don't have a lot of views, and that's for a reason. But it's also because it's really hard to get a YouTube channel going, depending on where you sit as far as content that you're putting out.
Yeah.
Some content does really well right off the bat, other content does not. Um, so I did highlight videos for a little bit, and then I actually I had some friends in paintball that started a new team up, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to?" I can't remember how exactly it went, but I think it was like, "Do you want to do a series on us? Do you want to film us through our events here at Playground, and do you want to do a documentary, I guess was the word that probably was brought up. Do you want to do a documentary series on us?" And I'm like, shit, like, I guess. Like, I don't know what I'm doing still, but yeah, I'll film you guys if you want me to do it. So that was my first big project, and that was probably about a year or two after I started actually doing the highlight videos and stuff. So it was a bunch of my friends on a team, and they were like, just come out, film our practices, we'll do some interviews. I guess technically I was the one telling them what I need, because they had no idea what to do. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna need interviews and just we'll get some playing footage and stuff like that. So that was my first big project. A couple of the highlight videos did well in the beginning. Like there was an indoor arena way in North Jersey, and it snowed this one weekend, and it was really cold, and nothing around me was open. So this paintball arena called Hardcore Paintball Arena was an hour and a half north of me. So I'm like, all right, I'll just drive there and go do some filming indoor, which is, don't ever film indoor. It's god awful.
The audio quality.
Yeah, the field probably sucks. It's just not fun. I got shot so much, but I went there, I filmed, and I put I put an Eminem song over it, a mix of footage from there, and the footage is awful. But that was the first video that did really well. They got 11K views.
Oh, wow.
At least now it's sitting at 11K. I don't know how much I had back then, but that was the first big video that kind of popped off, and it was still really bad. But then right after that, I did the Playground series, or the Playground Elite series, which was the documentary series on the team, which wasn't even as big as that highlight video, but it was my first project that I think people noticed, I guess would probably be the word. At least in a local area, they noticed that I was doing these series and stuff. So after that, I just started releasing like random raw footage videos. Like, it wasn't matches; it was just extra footage that I had from the Elite series, and then just practices that I would film, maybe a couple events here and there. I would just mash it all together into a video and put it out, and that was that's where the Through the Lens series started. Which was a little bit. That was 6 years ago I started that. So that was something cool. So I was still doing the highlights here and there. Started getting hired at NXL events. I started going to NXL in 2015, right after they did was it Nashville? No, the Virginia event. Their first event was the Virginia one back in the day, and I missed that one, and then I went to Cup. So Cup, I did a cool highlight for Philadelphia Extreme, which I think they were D2 back then. That was another big project of mine. That was probably the second big one, because they were really a lot of established players in that team. Definitely felt like I had to do a really good job for them, because they were really good players. Everybody knows their names around here now because they've been in paintball for so long, and even back then, everybody knew who they were. So that was another big project that I started. That turned out pretty well, I think. And then I guess after that, the next documentary was probably the next big one, which was the Newbies documentary.
I've seen that one, I'm pretty sure. And anyway, keep going.
Yeah, there's two of them. There's Fear the Call.
Yeah,
First
I've
one,
seen
and
that
there's
one.
Fear the Call Part 2. Yeah. So the first one, that was the next. That was that really? I skipped over one more. There was one more series that I did for Philadelphia Savages, which is a
Mm.
team I'm on now, but it was their D3 line, D3, D4 line back in the day. Those are all the guys that had families and kind of moved on a little bit. So that was that series. That one did. That's another thing that really, I think, jumped me up because that was probably the first time I put together a series that was, I guess, I don't want to say worthy of being on YouTube, but um, it was good enough to be on YouTube. It definitely looked like a pretty well put together series
Hmm.
from what I remember. I haven't watched them in a long time. They're probably dog shit now. But back in the day, I thought they
I'm
were
sure
really
that's not
good.
true. I have
Back in the
seen
day, I thought they were good.
I have seen the newbies. I've seen both of those actually, and I think those may have been some of the first videos that I've seen of yours. But what's funny is I thought newbies, that squad that's currently playing semi-pro, was semi-pro since the documentary that you made. I don't know why, just in my brain that was the case. So when we played against them our first event this year, I had this, not like, I wouldn't say starstruck, but I was like, oh, I've seen these guys, like I seen their videos, and I didn't put it together back then that was from your YouTube channel. But so it was, I mean, at least in my mind, it was a very good documentary for,
Thanks.
so
Yeah, they were a D3 back then, and yeah. So two more things just about that because I haven't actually answered your question about the ups and downs, but so every documentary that I've done, the team that I've filmed for, I guess other than Savages, like documentaries as far as just the documentary themselves, not a series. The series that my teams didn't do, they did okay, but they didn't do amazing. But then when I started to do the documentary series, like the newbies D3 team made it to the finals. Um, just that time just was amazing for that documentary. Then I did another documentary after that on their other D3 line, and it was the first event that they made it to the finals as well.
that timing.
Um, yeah, and I think there was one more documentary I did. Was God, I feel like I've done like 9 newbies documentaries because that shit took so long. But I know those two, they made it to the finals field on both of those, so that was really cool. It was just everything worked out really well for those videos.
That's cool.
But as far as growing the channel goes, I'm not gonna lie to you, it fucking sucks growing a paintball channel on YouTube. It is not easy. Paintball is not something that gets pushed out very much as far as YouTube goes. You have a very tight knit,
Yeah.
tight knit group of viewers, and it's really hard to break out of that, especially now because maybe back in the day, I'm sure people have seen the HK Army videos or PB Nation videos. They have 1 million, 2 million plus views, but that was maybe back in paintball's prime when it was still pretty new, especially the X-ball style. So people were definitely looking for it more, and now it's really died down. So as far as growth, in the beginning it was kind of easy, and then it was like a really steady line for a while. It was just a very slow climb. And then I started releasing the raw footage videos where it was actual matches. And I definitely think the raw matches helped bring it up. I mean, I think one of the first raw matches I ever released, or one of the first 2 years of doing the raw matches, that video is still the biggest video on my channel.
Is that the Tauntauns one, I think?
The Tauntauns versus White and Heat. Yeah, it's not even a good one. But that one's sitting at 100K, or almost at 100K right now, which is still my almost most viewed video on my channel. So obviously the raw matches, I think, were the thing that really propelled the channel. And propelled is a very, probably not a good term because it's not propelling anywhere. It's a very slow climb up the sub ladder. So I tell everybody all the time, I'm like, I'm just waiting for the day when something happens where paintball gets in the limelight again, and then I'll be there already.
Yeah, exactly.
As an established channel. But I mean, that's a very dumb wish to keep in the back of your head.
It's all you can do, really, at this point.
Yeah,
so
it's just hoping.
Yeah, I've noticed, before we move on, I've noticed that as well, that, I mean, obviously there's elements of growing a channel that are at play regardless of the type of content you make, right? But It is interesting that that with paintball specifically, because I've been in content creation for a long time. I recently started this channel, but I've been making content since I was like 17, and I'm 30 this year. I actually just turned 30 recently. But one thing that I noticed is that paintball players don't really like to consume their own content. Like
No, they
it's
don't.
so funny because you can get hundreds and hundreds or thousands of people to show up to an event, but you can't get those same people to want to watch any of the games after the event's
Yeah.
done. They go there, they have a good time, they come home, and then they don't think about paintball till the weekend. And so I've been trying to figure out the days in which I should be posting these videos, but I actually don't think it matters in paintball because people don't really care until either they're right about to play, like on a Friday or Saturday. That's when I usually see my views go up, or random like Tuesday mornings. And it's like, oh, somebody's thinking about paintball while they're at work, so they want to watch a video or something like that. But
Yeah.
it is very interesting. It's hard to find, to find where the players are. But at this point, I just think, well, there's not a lot of people who like to watch it, so it's just pretty funny. But
Yeah, there's that thing on YouTube and Studio where it's like these are the times your viewers are on the most or whatever. It'll tell you that graph, and it's kind of weird because mine is Sunday night to Wednesday night are prime time for me. That's when a lot of people watch. Although Mondays are kind of weird, especially when it comes around when sports cups start coming back on. I think a lot of people are obviously watching Monday Night Football instead of a paintball match.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, Mondays are really weird. A lot of people I don't think are watching paintball the day after they practice. It's kind of like, whatever.
yeah,
And then I think once started hitting that Tuesday, Wednesday gap, they're like, oh, I kind of, they're itching for a little bit more because they finally stopped thinking about all the shit they did wrong at practice. So they're like, oh, let me go watch a video.
exactly.
So I think that's what I found because that's why I try to release videos on Sunday nights. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Honestly, the thing that matters more on YouTube is thumbnail, title. I would say time you posted after that, and then content. Those first, because you could have a really shit video, but if you have a great thumbnail, people are gonna click on it. Even if
For
it's just for
sure.
a minute, they're gonna click on it. And obviously, views on everything. Watch time is probably just as important. But yeah, YouTube's weird, man. It's just some videos it gets pushed really, really hard, and some videos just don't.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's not always cut and dry on how to do that. So
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be trying to figure it out for the next few years. I'm sure you'll be figuring it out for the next few years, especially when it comes to paintball, because obviously guns aren't exactly a thing YouTube's
Yeah,
trying to shell out to people. So
for sure. Well, let's move on to some paintball stuff then. I've got a few questions for you here. I'm sure there's other questions that people will have as well about this, but what I'm curious to know, again, because you film so much paintball, you watch so much paintball between tournaments and editing the footage that you record. Like, I'm just curious to know what are the biggest differences that you see between lower divisions and higher divisions. I mean, you could obviously point to just individual skill, period, but I want to know if there's any specific thing you've identified in your time filming. Like, without even knowing a team's division, you could probably put together how good they are. And I want to know if there's like a wow factor or something that stands out to you that separates those teams.
Okay, so I just filmed a D5 event for the first time like all year a month or two ago. And after filming NXL all year where it was D4 and up, that's pretty much all I filmed. And then going to D5 local 5-man, I was like, wow, this is awful. This is nobody wants to watch this. I don't even want to film this. It's just bad. There's maybe 1-2 teams out of the 20 there that I was like, wow, these guys are good and that were actually entertaining. But yeah, definitely a few things over the years that I've noticed is D5 has I think obviously the biggest one that everybody thinks of is field awareness. Field awareness is very much not there in D5 for a lot of teams. I have videos from that event of guys getting shot from one bunker. They get put in, the guy moves up to the next bunker, and then he doesn't shoot right away. He's just there. So then the two players are just kind of sitting there and they're just waiting. And then the guy on the opposite end of the field finally comes back out and he starts shooting the same bunker again. And I'm like, guy, come on. Like, he's not shooting anymore. He's obviously moved up. And then, of course, what happens? The guy peeks, puts 7 into his chest, and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And like,
why didn't my teammates tell me he was there?
yeah. Like, dude, come on. He's obviously going to move up to the next snake knuckle. Like, what are you doing? So, like, field awareness is a big one. Communication, obviously, is huge. There's a lot of teams that just don't talk at all. Or they don't talk till 30 seconds into a point when they get their first kill, and then everybody's saying kill one and nobody's listening. They're all just yelling at each other that it's kill one. Um, and that's all you hear for the next minute until somebody on their team gets shot, and then they're like, "Oh, we lost one," and then everybody repeats, "We lost one," even though everybody already knows. Um, so yeah, field awareness, communication, and then there's kind of two other things that I think about. Accuracy would be one. Gun control would be a part of that. Just being able to actually hold your lane and actually, you know, aiming the right way at a player. You can shoot a gap all you want, but you actually have to be able to gunfight and accurately gunfight if you're gonna try and actually beat some of these teams. Because as everybody knows, there's definitely some high level D5 teams that should probably be D4 that are still playing D5, if not D3, if they let a player like that come in. So gunfighting is definitely very important, especially with accuracy. You have to accurately gunfight to even put that player in, if they're used to that. And I guess tying into that being scared of paint, you can't be scared. A lot of D5 players are, which I get. There's a lot of kids that play D5. I think a big thing is getting rid of that fear right away. Just, play the center, run up the center, get shot, and get used to that because it'll make you a much better player if you're not scared of it. And then last thing is just like pit staff. I know it's pretty hard for D5 teams to get people like that. You got to have family or you got to have friends or a girlfriend that's into that. And coach comes on top of that too. Like even if you just have a friend that plays paintball, just get them in there to help you coach. Especially if you don't have anybody. You can't player coaching at D5 is really hard.
Yeah.
It's already hard at semi-pro, but you're very established at that point. Newbies player coach every event.
Which is incredible. Like that, it's hard
Yeah,
to
they have
express
no
how
coach.
hard that is to do.
They got lucky a couple of times because one of their players will sit out for a whole event because they didn't make practice or they felt like they weren't ready, so they would sit out and help coach. But as far as like an established coach, that's Andy, and Andy plays the two on the snake side. But I mean, he's basically coach, and then everybody else is basically secondary coach, and they do have staff, but there is no set coach on that team. There's always people playing and coaching. So that's something that's been really incredible with the team. But yeah, just coaching and staff, man. You got to get somebody. You can't player coach in D5 because there's so many teams that just don't even know that they're on the field.
Yeah.
unless the people are yelling at them to get on the field. Most of them don't even know. So you really gotta have that one person who's just there to watch the clock or tell you when to go on the field. You need somebody.
It also helps really calm people down because they don't have to focus on those things. They can just focus on playing the game at least as much as possible. And that's interesting. What about in your experience filming, because you filmed a lot of semi-pro, like since I've gotten introduced to your channel, I feel like I watched a lot of D2 and semi-pro more so than I've ever watched in my entire time playing paintball.
People don't care. Like it's sad to say, but people do not care about D3 and D4
for
like
sure.
Semi-final stuff unless it's like a really established team or a new team that's like killing it or stuff like that. So.
Yeah. But what I've enjoyed about watching is obviously seeing the same teams and watching how they've grown, right? CEP comes to mind, Newbies comes to mind.
Yeah.
But my question is, you filming, semi-pro this year and last year, what do you think is the big differences between the bottom half of those teams and the top half of those teams, say in semi-pro or in Division 2 or whatever other divisions you film? What do you think separates those teams, like that skill gap?
Trying to think of the top teams. So obviously Newbies, NO Hurricanes, Blast Camp. I mean, Blast Camp is just on.
And by the way, I'm excluding our team because that puts them in a weird spot. We are bottom right now, just so you guys are aware. We are.
I was gonna say you guys just because I filmed you guys against Newbies and in one of the recent events.
That would have been in Florida, our first event in semi-pro, and it was rough.
Your first point you won. I was like, oh, all right, we got.
Yeah, we actually lost that. We actually lost that series 2-1. Yep. And the last point, I was in the 50 on their side wrapping the snake, and all I think I had to do was just take the bite and try to take someone with me. But I couldn't hear the 60 seconds because the buzzer was on the Dorito side. And so when I actually have a picture of it. I talked about it on the stream. But when I was rapping low, looking the Dorito way from the snake side, I couldn't hear the 60 seconds and I couldn't see any refs making the signal. And so I didn't go and make the move. I knew we didn't have much time. I still feel embarrassed about that. But anyway, you don't have to talk about us. I know we're at the bottom of the barrel right now. We're just learning this year. But go ahead, keep talking.
So I guess one of the things is finding finding the right balance between attacking and defending would probably be
Hmm.
a big one, and being able to do both, I think, is really big. Knowing when you need to kill the clock, even if you're up a point. If it's a really slow field, you need to know how to kill the clock. You need to recognize it. Okay, we're up by 1. We can lock down this field because this layout is really hard to attack on. So, and then knowing the difference between, I guess, being too aggressive and being aggressive enough would probably be another one. There's a lot of teams that A team is one of the few teams that I've ever seen that can be down 4 points and literally just run down the field and tie a game up.
Hmm.
They're very good at being down points and just running at players and tying it up. It's crazy. I've seen A team do it so many times. And then there's other teams where they'll be really aggressive, but they don't do it in a smart way. They'll just kind of throw their body up the middle, and then their wide guys will try and go around and try and clean up after that. But yeah, if you want to see a team that's really good at just coming back and running down teams' throats, would be A team.
Hmm.
They're really good at that. But I would say that's probably a big one. Learning, trying to find a good balance between attacking and defending would probably be really good thing to learn. It's hard to learn, but it's really key. So that's why I know Hurricanes, I think, are so good because they know how to do both really well. Shameless plug, which you can see in my new video that I just posted on Sunday.
I actually watched it before the stream. It was awesome. It was a really good game.
Yeah, that was such a good game. I was rooting for newbies, man. But anyway, communication would be another big thing. Blastcam's really good at communicating.
Very, yeah.
Everybody's talked about it already, but Jackson Fry is probably the best home player, excluding pro in the league. That guy is just insane. Being able to shoot, know where everybody is, tell everybody where everybody else is, get calls across the field. So obviously communication is going to be huge, and I think that's something that semi-pro teams are still lacking. Which you think semi-pro, you're like, wow, you've been doing this for a while, but really there are a lot of new players in semi-pro still. You could be D3 and you're getting pulled up to play semi-pro depending on if your team needs you. So it's not always that players have been playing for a while. It could be a new player, it could be somebody that is playing a different position and they're not used to it as much because obviously front players are not communicating as much as a 2 is, or home players. There's always some factors that go into it, but then there's teams that have players that have been playing together for a while and they still don't communicate very well.
Yeah.
At least not when they need to. Maybe off the break and easy points they're communicating, but then when it gets down to like the nitty gritty and like, holy shit, we're down by 2, like nobody's really doing the communicating that they need to. So I would definitely say that's probably a big one.
Yeah, I've noticed that Blast Camp, the thing that I'm super impressed by them, I've said this several times on stream. I'm a huge fan of Blast Camp. We have a pretty close connection between Jackson Frey and our squad because like Christian and Nick Harrop play on Team USA with him. But they are so consistent no matter how many bodies are alive with that communication. And it doesn't have to, Jackson is hands down like the best communicator I've seen. Yeah, you're right, excluding pro. But the rest of their team is also just very consistently communicating throughout the whole point. And I don't know, I've tried to watch them a lot this year to see if there's some kind of secret because their field awareness is very good and they put together those situations, those weird body situations together very quickly. And so that's the one thing that I'm very impressed. Like there's a lot of points, especially in this last event that I watched, where they'll lose a body off the break, but it's like it didn't even happen. Like they still play like there's 5 bodies alive and that they're in control of the game the whole time. Like no disrespect to NO Hurricanes because they are a very good squad and everybody else that they played, they were very good. But man, they manhandled some teams that were really good. I would argue they gave a pretty solid beating to NE Hurricanes,
They did.
who are a very good team. And I think it's just because, well, one, they had an amazing showing at the Astra Invitational, but they're obviously getting great practices. But it's just something about their ability to stay really consistent in down body situations and pull those out like it didn't even notice it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
one thing I would say definitely, because you maybe think of any Hurricanes, they're also a team that's super aggressive, but they're not aggressive like NO Hurricanes. Like they really like to go at players, but then a lot of them just end up getting shot. Especially in, I can't remember what match it was. One of the recent matches with them, they were, I think it was against the other Hurricanes team, where they were just trying to throw everything at them. Like they were just running at them, trying to move into a position as soon as they lost that player, and then he would get shot. Right after that, they were constantly trying to move down the field, and NO was just chopping them up
Mm-hmm.
constantly. So they're a very good team, but as far as like learning how to be that aggressive and staying alive kind of aggressive, that's another thing that it goes back to trying to learn how to do that and be really good at it. So
Yeah. Yeah, big shout out to Bianca over there. I actually had Bianca at NO Hurricanes. I had a chance to meet with them. Ethan Vines, one of our players, has a pretty good connection with him. And if you guys have not met Bianca at an event, go up and talk to that man. He is super nice. I don't know if you've met their coach, but he is a really, really good guy.
He was their coach when I filmed CEP for like
That's
2 years straight. I filmed like every event, and he was their coach. I don't think I've said hi to him, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation. I barely talk to anybody as far as like teams go at events, because I'm like, hey, I'm here, because it's like 2 minutes before the match starts. I'm like, hey, I'm here. Like, all right, good luck.
Have
Sometimes
fun.
I don't even say anything. Like if I'm film, there was a couple of teams where I never said a word to them the whole event, because I'm just like on the field, I film, and then I run to the next thing. I'm like, because especially if they lose, I don't want to like sit around and like talk to them about like how they just lost the match and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So I'm like, I don't have a lot of break time most of the time at events. So I'm usually just like in and out trying to go, especially filming for book teams and trying to get YouTube stuff. So it's just,
for
I
sure.
don't really have time. So I try to say hi when I can, but it's not
Yeah,
like my top priority.
you're a
And then
very,
they'll
very
message me
busy
after the
person.
event. Yeah, they messaged me after the event. They're like, "Hey, did you film our matches?" Like, I promise I was there. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry. Happens all the time.
So one thing I want to ask before we move on to talking about broader things within paintball, because I know you posted your first post on Instagram was like, I'm going to be talking about all the things that were wrong with paintball, and I absolutely want to hear those. But before we do that, the last thing I want to ask you is, first of all, I don't know how many teams you film that don't at this point, because you're in such high demand. I don't know if there really are teams that you film who you either don't know or didn't pay for your services. But do you, I kind of get the sense that you have this ability to just look at two teams and say, oh, these guys are going to win, without you even knowing anything about those teams. Is that true? And if that's the case, how, I would just imagine that your experience in filming gives you that power of sorts.
So usually, um, God, I'm trying to think. I used to try and film prelim matches as much as I could. Like as far as YouTube content goes, I would try and find matches that I'm like, okay, these two teams I know, like I know people are gonna watch them. Like I can go through the list on PBLI, and I'll be like, nobody's gonna watch that match. Nobody's gonna watch this match. Nobody knows who this team is. It sucks to say, but like my main job is to like get videos that people are gonna watch. Like,
For sure.
that's why I'm wasting time filming the extra matches, and most of the time I don't even use it. There's a lot of stuff that I don't use. Um, which is why I was starting to do the midweek releases, because it was just going to be matches that people aren't super into, that was just going to be extra content to put out, because I'm never going to do anything with it. It's just going to sit on my hard drive. So I'm like, let me put it out there. So if it's good enough, I usually do that. But yeah, usually I'll look through the list and I'm like, okay, I know people are going to watch this team because they've been on social media. Like I've seen posts about them. I've seen people talk about them in Facebook groups, or like talking about certain players, stuff like that. And then when it comes to Sunday matches, I always check the schedule the night before, so I'll make my schedule for Sunday, and then I'm like, okay, these are all the matches that I want to follow, or these are all the teams that I want to follow and try and film. Semi-pro is easy. There's only 20 teams. You can tell people are going to watch almost anybody in the semi-pro division. So there's maybe like one out of like 7 matches that I don't want to film on Sunday, and even then I'll still film it just in case something crazy happens. But yeah, I can usually look at a list and be like, okay, the people are actually going to watch this match. And those are usually the ones that I go for.
That's cool. That's awesome. Okay, let's get on to talking about some broader things really quick. So, the question I wanted to ask was, Mike Hinman, I think after the Sunshine State Major, made a comment about how semi-pro just did not look up to snuff. I don't know if you saw him make that comment. Yeah, so he made this comment about how semi-pro was really underwhelming. Didn't look like it didn't look like a filter or feeder division into the pro division. And obviously we played that event. I wasn't able to notice much of that. There was obviously some teams that didn't have very good showings. I think Semi-Pro Aftermath was one that didn't have a great showing, and there was other teams that had some disappointing finishes. But it gets me to think, if that's true, what is it that we need to do from a broader perspective of paintball to help each division, for that matter, filter into the next? Because in my mind, how I view the breakdown of divisions, there's a really big gap between Division 5 and Division 4, mostly because there's a lot of learning. It's the people are brand new to the sport. But even within Division 4, the bottom of Division 4 and the top of Division 4 is also really massive. It's almost like Silver League in League of Legends, if anybody's familiar with that. Like, that player percentage is massive. But then when you start going up to Division 3, I think is a little tighter. Division 2 gets I would say pretty tight, but in some cases, like in local events, those can be pretty wide gaps.
Right.
And then you have semi-pro, which for the most part is a pretty tight division within the NXL. But then you get up, then from semi-pro to pro, that's like even the bottom pro to top pro is massive. Like the difference between, and no disrespect to anybody, the difference between like a Columbus LVL compared to like a Dynasty, excluding even, never mind its Dynasty, right? They have years and years and years of experience, but like there seems to be something that's breaking down in us, like training people into playing in the next division, and especially when we're talking about bottom pro to top pro. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that and what maybe could be done to help fix that issue.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just time playing. It's a lot easier to go from D5 to D4 in a much shorter span of time than it is to go from semi-pro to pro. Because I mean, NO Hurricanes have been playing. When I started filming in 2015, NO was in D3, and they've been playing for five years. I'd say a year in D3, and then they went up to semi-pro in 2018. Can't remember when they went up to semi-pro, but they've had so much time in semi-pro that when they do become a pro team, they're gonna have a lot of experience going into pro. They're obviously not going to be a Dynasty or a Heat or anything like that. But then when you look at a D5 team, they'll play for a year and then they're D4 already against a D4 team that's been playing D4 for like 3 years now. Because maybe they won one event and took like 5th and a 6th and a 7th and then like a 3rd over the next 4 events. So they're stuck in D4 for a while. So I think one thing would just be time playing. It's a lot easier to go up every division from D5 to D2, I'd say. And then going from D2 to semi-pro, you have teams that have been playing for a long time, at least longer than the other teams when they bump up. So yeah, experience and just like obviously field awareness comes in that, because the more you play, the more field awareness you'll get. So I think time playing is probably the biggest factor, I would say. And probably just like an established team. Like you need to have, a lot of teams don't stay together when they start in D5 and you go up to, technically try to go pro if you're still playing semi-pro. So it's really hard to find a team that has a core group of guys, or at least even just 4 guys that have stayed together for that whole ride up. Obviously Dynasty's so good because they've been playing together since they were teens. They're in their 30s now, 30s and up. So, finding teams like that is very rare. So time playing and then playing together would probably be the next biggest thing. You really gotta, if you're trying to go pro, you gotta try and find those guys you're gonna try and stick with for the next 7-8 years to really play with. You might find a guy along the way that you can replace here and there with somebody that's just as good, but I'd say you need at least 3 guys that have been playing together for a long time.
Chemistry's huge.
Yeah, you need to have some kind of chemistry between, I'd say, at least 3 players. If you're gonna make it up to that high, even high semi-pro, you gotta have a core group.
Yeah.
You can't just rebuild a team. I mean, Aftermath was a proof of that. You can't rebuild a team, have them play for a year, and then just, try and kick everybody out and take the first place.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what's also interesting is that seems to be, maybe people will flame me for saying this, but that seems to be somewhat of a unique problem with paintball, only because if you look at, I'm not much of a sports guy outside of paintball, I have to admit, but if you look at like the NHL with Las Vegas Knights or Golden Knights or whatever, right? Yeah. Obviously, huge money behind that, big acquisition, lots of talent came in.
So many good players.
So many good players. Yes, that's different. But I would argue that there were a lot of good players when Aftermath, how many times has Aftermath been reformed and how many good players did they have on the roster, right? So what's interesting is that seems to be a unique problem with paintball. And I think part of the reason, again, I'm curious to get your take on this. Part of, I think, the reason is that pro paintball has this this feeling or this arrogance to it that as soon as you bring somebody up into the pro division, you just need to know what to do, and I don't have time to teach you what to do. That's that. I have some close connections with people like Christian Martinez, obviously. He's a former Bro Army player. Matty Kling, a lot of Corey Hale. A lot of these people have shared this information with me to say that, like, as soon as you get to the pro division, you have to just know what you're going to do, and otherwise you're not going to get any play time, and you might even get dropped. Whereas when you get taken up into like the NFL, for example, you're being developed, right? The first year or two of your time being on that team, you're going through a lot of training, you're going through a lot of these exercises, these drills, and they're, hey, Anonymous, thanks for the 5 gifted. Sorry, I'm not going to interrupt the stream for anything other than those. So thanks for the 5 gifted. I appreciate that. But what's odd is that there is this weird, tone within the pro division that I don't have time to teach you. You're not here to extract everything from us. You just need to watch and learn. And if you make it, you make it. And if you don't, you don't. I don't know if you get that same feeling or what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. That's why you see a lot of guys go up to pro. They're on the pro for like a year and they get 2 points played and then they get dropped again. It's pretty rare that you see a pro player go up and then if they're on a roster with 7 guys, they're, unless they're performing amazing, they're not going to stay on that roster. We see it every year. We see people get brought up. We say congratulations. Then the next year they get brought back down. We're like, we'll see you on the semi-pro field, bud.
Yeah.
And then everybody wants to take their head off because they were a pro.
Yeah.
And they maybe played like 2 points. Same thing happened with Damian Ryan. I mean, not that he wasn't good enough, but when he came down to semi-pro, everybody was gunning for him because he was a pro and for a long time established pro. But as far as needing to know what to do, I mean, it's kind of like going to college. Nobody prepares you for college. You come out of high school and you go to college, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? You don't know.
Yeah.
Like, to get up and go to class. But other than that, you're like, all right, I guess I got to get a job to pay for this unless I'm paying loans off for the rest of my life. And you got to figure out how to do all that. And you really just have to figure out how to be on your own, which I guess is kind of the same thing in paintball. When you get brought up, if you go from D5 to D4 and then so on up the ladder, I feel like people tend to not help you as much through each division because you're supposed to know what to do. But I mean, when you make that jump from semi-pro to pro, they're really looking for you to just have it right away. They're probably not really looking to have you become a great player. Especially those teams that have been around for a while. They've been playing for so long. They don't want to teach they don't want to teach someone how to play good pro paintball because they've been playing it for 30 years. So they just want to get somebody in there that's going to perform well, do the job, and do it well. So if that doesn't work out, they'll say, all right, we're just going to move on to the next guy. Because, I mean, it's not like they don't have a big pool of people to choose from.
Yeah.
What semi-pro player wouldn't want to go play on Dynasty? So they'll bring them out, and if they perform well, they'll bring them and keep them.
Apparently Grayson Gladstone, but
yeah.
No, I love that guy. I heard it was mutual. I've talked to Victor Gambo about it. It seemed to be mutual, but keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's just like, I don't know. I don't think they want to put the time in when they know they have a giant pool of players to choose from. There's no reason to.
That's
like
interesting.
They don't want to spend money to fly people out if they're not going to perform well when they can play Joe from Texas that might play in the local area that just might play better, so they'll just take him and drop the next guy. So I think that could be a big part of it, but I could be totally wrong. But.
That's actually really interesting. I didn't think of that, or I didn't consider that. And partly, I think the reason is because I feel like the sentiment from the pro division is almost the opposite of that. Like, just to give you some context. So this year we've had 2 pro clinics at Utah Bro Army's private field with Ryan Greenspan, and then the G2 camp. So like Tyler Harmon, Victor Gamboa.
True.
And then I did the paintball combine 2020 February, again, that same camp, Kyle Spica, Nick Laval, all that stuff. And one of the things that is kind of the attitude that you get from these pro coaches and players is that there really isn't a lot of talent to pull from the semi-pro division or from any other division. And they kind of look at, they kind of look at lower divisions with this kind of like pity and disappointment. At least that's the sentiment that I got, right?
Yeah.
And so what's odd is that certainly you can pay pro players $1,200 to $2,500 to come and teach you for a weekend. Right. And that's kind of like paying your dues. But what's odd is that, like, look at Dynasty. In my opinion, Dynasty has a big problem that they're going to have to address sooner than later with their age and experience. And just the fact that, like, who's going to keep, I mean, maybe the entire team's going to keep playing paintball for, till they're 45 plus. But right. Like, even some of their performance issues they've had this year, when Ryan Greenspan came out to the Bro Army camp, he had said that a big reason why Tyler Harmon left was that he was really disappointed with, I'm not going to name the names, you guys can put it together, some of his teammates' athleticism and their lack of like taking it seriously and stuff like this, which I think is a combination of age and just a combination of those guys have been winning forever, so they're kind of like sitting on their laurels. But
Right.
but I do think that it's odd because Dynasty could do so much for their camp if they took players that they saw had the athleticism and were, intelligent enough to be taught.
Right.
But then actually spent time teaching and training these people. Like they wouldn't have any issues with turnover if they all of a sudden decided, okay, I'm an owner of Dynasty in Field 1. I'm just going to like chill and coach and you guys win me events because I took the time to teach you. And I feel like that's true for Houston Heat. That's true for Impact. That's true for all these teams that have been together for a really long time. But what's odd is just, yeah, they do have a huge pool to choose from, but they seem to be like wholly underwhelmed by it. You know what I mean? And so that's where I think this issue comes from in my mind is like, why are we not taking the time to develop players that we even bring up to the pro division, and so on and so forth. But
Dude, yeah, the way I see it in 10, trying to think of how old the oldest pros are, in like 10 to 15 years, there's probably going to be a big problem where pro becomes a semi-pro bracket, where it becomes like a semi-pro bracket, because all those players that have been playing for 30 plus years are going to stop. All the Heat guys are going to stop. They're all getting older. Dynasty is going to stop. Trying to think who are the other top tier teams that are a little bit older. Infamous, a lot of those guys are probably going to stop eventually. So these top 5, top 8 teams, when they lose their core roster that's been playing for 30 years, all of a sudden you're not going to have people to fill in. You're not going to have experienced players to fill in those spots that have been playing since they were teens. At least not to the talent that they're at this point. So I really think unless something actually happens where camps start developing for these teams, it's not going to look like pro in another 10 to 15 years. It's probably going to look more like a semi-pro division.
Which is weird to like, isn't that weird?
So weird?
Like,
because we've all grown up on the same players since paintball started. Since X-ball started, I should say, and speedball fields started. We've been watching the same players. So as soon as they retire, there's not going to be those established guys anymore. So it's going to be really weird to see what the pro division looks like in 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, and I guess the other frustration, just from my perspective, is that they're with that attitude of you just gotta have it. You gotta know what to do when you come to pro. Well, it's like, well, okay, I've been playing paintball for off and on, like people say, for about 17 years now. My first tournament was when I was 13 years old. I played a lot of tournaments before APPA was a thing, and then I took a huge break, came back, and so I've been playing paintball about the same amount of years as some pros, right? Not consistently like they have. But I am never going to have more experience than them as long as they're playing paintball, right? And so what's odd, and that's true for everybody in paintball with the exception of Dynasty, like Dynasty, teams like Infamous, right? And so it just seems weird that I think it hurts the sport a lot when those players that are as veteran as they are don't take the time to develop teams. Now, certainly you could say, well, people like Brandon Unger and Kyle Spica, and there's other pros, especially in the West Coast that I'm familiar with, coach local like D4, D3 teams and stuff like that. And you could argue that that is them kind of paying back to the sport. And you could argue that the clinics that they run do as well. But I guess I would think it would make more sense to do that within the organization itself. Like, how many people would be willing to ride the bench on Dynasty if they had a 15-man roster, like an unofficial 15-man roster, but those other 5 guys or whatever were just there at the events, getting, maybe even getting 1 point at most, but just being there at practices and playing against them. I guess that's kind of what practice squads are supposed to be. But anyway, it's just weird to me. I don't know why paintball does that, because I do think it hurts the sport a lot. But
yeah, I mean, you're pretty much going to have a bunch of, again, no offense to any low-level or low-ranked pro teams, but you're going to have 15 Columbus level teams when everybody else retires, so their experience is going to be there, and they're going to be good players, but they're not going to be the Dynasty or the Heat or the Infamous that we see today. It's probably going to be a really different.
For sure.
So unless teams, I guess the one thing you really need is you need money. You're going to have to pay people to actually go and coach these teams to be your feeder team. later in the future. And Dynasty used to have a feeder team. I don't think it was an official feeder team, but they were called Dynasty 2. And I
Isn't it
know
Dynasty
there are,
Entourage?
yeah, there were a couple Dynasty, lower level Dynasty teams. And there are some other, Infamous has a D3 team and a D4 team. So they have some teams,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how involved the actual Infamous team is with those guys. So, I mean, really the only solution is either those pro players take time and money to go coach these new teams up to hopefully fill the division in later when they retire, which I don't even know if they care what paintball looks like in 10 to 15 years. They're just there playing right now.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe they just don't care. And then the other thing you need is money. You need to be able to pay for all that and get those teams in there, which obviously there's no money in paintball. So
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're doing clinics, you're probably not making any money in paintball, or you're playing in Russia.
Yeah, which somehow that works.
Yeah.
Well, then let's talk about, while we're on this, like, I want to say depressing tone. What do you
Let's start
think?
talking about what I hate. Let's
Yeah,
go.
what are all the things that you hate about paintball? Tell me the things that bother you
Okay.
the most.
One thing that bothers me every time I go to an NXL event, I don't know if it's just an NXL thing or if it's an every event thing, but there was not a goddamn thing that tells me there was a paintball event going on in this area. There was not a single thing. We had an event 20 minutes from my house, and I would never know because it's on some back ass country road in some cornfield. Like there was like a really main road, main highway, 5 minutes from the venue, and I would never know if I didn't know there was if I didn't look and knew I was going to a paintball event. Like you could put a for sale sign up on a pole next to the Wawa and say paintball a mile down the road. You do something. I can't stand that. It can't be that hard. And okay, so you might have to get a permit, pay for a permit to put a sign up and say, come play free paintball. Kids can have free paintball. It doesn't hurt. Just put up something
Yeah.
that tells people that there's something going on. Nobody's going to know there's a paintball event going on in the parking lot of the NASCAR race. Nobody cares. People are going to see those floating fields with the inflatable bunkers and be like, that looks stupid. You know, nobody's going to stop and look.
Yeah.
And even when they see paintball, people still aren't going to stop and look. But at least it might get 10 other people to come see what's going on, especially if they're like high school kids or even younger than that. That's a big thing that I hate. I can't stand that. There's no promotion. Promotion is very much only in the sport. It's not outside of it, which sucks. And then we get little things like the bike. I guess made people realize paintball was a thing, and then thought we were stupid again.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like that bike, but I mean, it was a cool idea. But and obviously NXL didn't pay for that. That was something that Houston Heat did. But a lot of people would just kind of put a lot of blame on the NXL for that. And I was like, guys, the NXL didn't pay for that. They probably didn't even know that was a thing until it was halfway done. So, yeah, just like promotion, I guess, would be a thing that I don't like. There's a lot of other things I don't like, I guess.
Let's see if I'm rapid fire if you can. Not that you don't, please take the time to explain if you want, but just rattle off whatever you got.
Obviously staff is a big thing, more so refs. It's hard to get refs. It's hard to get good refs. So maybe put a little more money into getting established refs. I remember when I first started filming NXL, there were a lot of refs that I really liked seeing. And a lot of refs that I enjoyed that actually were very professional and did a good job. And obviously back in 2015, I was super naive because it was my first national event, but it seemed like the reffing was so much better back then. It's obviously not going to be perfect and it's not going to be great. Sometimes even it might just be good. But it's just, I feel like it's just gone downhill ever since I started filming back in 2015. That's something I don't like. Scoreboards obviously are fucking annoying.
Yeah.
We've had this software for years and years and we still can't get it to work any of the events. We can't get 2 names on a scoreboard that are the right names. Can't get the clocks to work.
Can I interject with a real quick story?
Yeah, go ahead.
30 seconds. So at Philly on the semi-pro field, as you probably know this or remember this, one of the buzzers did not work. And so they just proceeded and we were split deck right when that started to happen. And so we actually were supposed to score a point against, I think it was CEP. We were up in the series like 2-1 or something. And we were going to score that next point. But because we had seen previous teams just kind of like tap behind the bunker next to the buzzer, because they actually had removed the buzzer at one point, but they had put it back, still wasn't working. We were under the impression that they were going to accept like tapping the bunker as just an acceptable way to score. So we have one of our players, Nick Harrop, in a one-on-one situation, make a sprint for the buzzer, tap close to it, right behind it, ref says he didn't score the point, but then
God.
they also gave him a penalty for scoring a dirty hang, and so we played down a player the next point, and we lost the series from that momentum shift. I cannot tell you how infuriating that is.
I can't imagine.
And it's one of those things where, like, first of all, semi-pro is a lot of money to play. Like, entry fees for those is not cheap, and for us to just have things that just like don't function is unacceptable to me. But anyway, that's my story.
Yeah. It's almost like a ref calling out a player in a one-on-one and then not going to pull him out.
It's almost like that. I wonder where I saw it. Oh, yeah. I saw that today. It's weird.
In that new video I posted on Sunday.
Yeah, you guys should watch that. It's crazy. Anyway.
But I guess another part of the reffing thing would be accountability, obviously, for everybody. From scorekeepers to NXL staff to refs. Everybody's got to have accountability. You know, if you fuck up, there's really nothing that'll hurt you if you fuck up. It's just like, okay, on to the next point.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. So accountability would be a huge thing. I don't know how they can fix that. I mean, sometimes they have the head ref, like, who's not even reffing. He's just like the head guy that coaches refs and stuff like that and does the clinics. He'll be around to watch a match. So, I mean, that's like the best thing I've seen. And even that doesn't always work because, you know, maybe they're not paying attention to everything on the field. And obviously you can't. So you're going to miss something, especially if you're on the snake side and everything happening on the D side. So yeah, accountability for just staff would be amazing. Like I said, I don't know exactly how they're going to do that, but that would be amazing. So they would just go a long way with the players too, to have that one person to talk to after a match. That's like, yes, I saw it. I'm sorry. Is like we do now. Like even that, like at least if they said they saw it, that would be good. Maybe they can't change it, but so I had something else. What was the other thing? It was the refs, accountability, scoreboards. Scorekeepers. Can we get scorekeepers that care and like pay attention? I don't know about you, but I've seen so many scorekeepers not give a shit about what's happening. Yeah. And they get told something like, what the hell? Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just doing the score thing. Like, can we get some like paintball players that have run a scoreboard before that can tell what team is what and like who is who? And like, I don't know. I've always, ever since I watched NXL, I want scorekeepers that care about what's going on. You don't have to be invested, but you just should pay attention to what's going on. Yeah. And some scorekeepers do. There are some really good scorekeepers out there. But there's a lot of them that don't care. And they're just there to get paid and they're just there to press the button and make sure everything's working. Even when it doesn't work. And that's not their fault. It's the software's fault. But just seeing scorekeepers that actually, like, I don't know, care about paintball, I guess, would be nice. It's like going to a tennis match and the ref doesn't give a shit what's going on. You know, it just kind of takes.
He doesn't ever call outs. He's just kind of picking his nose, like.
Yeah, it's just like you gotta have people that are around that are staffing, like actually kind of care, especially when it comes to a sport like this.
Yeah.
It's like an announcer, and obviously scorekeepers aren't announcers, but if announcers weren't into it, it just sucks. You know, so it's nice to have everybody around that field actually care about what's happening, and like care about if a team gets a fair call or doesn't and stuff like that. So that would be nice. That's something I've also noticed. There's a ton of other stuff like layouts. Layouts are fucking awful. I hate the bunkers are too big. They're god awful. If you look at PSP back in the day, you could see everything on the field. Even on the
there was a lot more gaps on PSP fields. Yeah.
Everything, you could see everything on the field. Nothing was like, who the hell? Where's that guy? Like, I can't see him behind the bunker. I'm picky about that because I film, so everything gets blocked by those big ass bunkers. So just a filming standpoint, spectator standpoint, get rid of the giant bunkers. We can have like one in the center, but stop putting the fucking wedges on the sides of the field.
That's so annoying.
Stop it. Yeah. And everybody just shoots over it and they shoot me. So
I've seen you get shot more this season than I have seen you in any season prior.
Yeah, it's crazy. I hate these layouts. Some of them are good. There's like one good one every year that I'm like, wow, that was really cool. Like there's a really aggressive snake that's like cool, but it's just like most of the time I don't even film on D side anymore because they ruin it. I can't film it because I just either get shot to pieces or I can't see anything. So it's not worth it, which I hate. I hate filming on one side only for a whole match, but sometimes the only thing you can do, especially because if you're on D side, you can't see anything on the other side of the field. Snake side, you can see almost everything. It's great. That's why I love filming from snake side. Upper management, I guess, for NXL also pisses me off. I feel like they don't really care either. I'm sure you've heard stories. I've also heard a shit ton of stories from people that, I guess wouldn't make you feel good about playing in the NXL. Doesn't make me feel good about shooting NXL half the time when I hear some of the stories. Those are NDA. I can't tell you.
I've heard things, but
yeah. There's some things that I don't like about, people that run the NXL. But is there anything else? I don't think so. I think I got all my gripes out.
Okay, I
Give
hope
me
that
enough.
feels.
Give me
What's
enough
that?
sideline room. Put the
Yeah,
nets out like another 12 inches. I complained about this before on Facebook, and Nick Sloviak commented, and then Tom Cole commented and said, "We'll see what we can do." And I think the next event they made it a little bit better, which is good, but they're still not big enough. Like even just for the refs, give us some damn rooms. Like Pro Field has like 3 feet of sideline space. Like why can't
yeah,
we have that?
yeah.
There's nothing. We're in a giant field. Give me more space. Why are we so confined? Netting is not that much
I was
money
gonna say
when you're making
marginally
a
more
million an
expensive
event.
at most. So
Yeah, so I hate that, but I don't know if that's ever gonna change. I want more room.
mm,
The more room you give me, the better I can make your event look. The
yeah.
better the refs can do because they'll have more room. It's just we're not in the way of the refs. The refs won't be in the way of us. Everybody's nice cohesion around the event. So, but I don't know. I don't decide how big the layouts get to be. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully
yeah, it's
that was
another
a
gripe.
little cathartic for you.
It was a little bit. I've been thinking about that all day.
That's good. I'm glad. So then tell me, I mean, I guess the natural thing would be, what do we do to fix some of those issues? But also, what are some things that you like about paintball in its current state?
Uh,
First of all, can I just say I think it's really stupid that videographers cannot film on the back line. Like, I understand some of the
I
reasons
know.
why. I mean, I could understand maybe there's a liability issue, or there's just like a confusion issue. If I'm a player shooting in a gap and a ref or a photographer decides to sit there, I have to now make a decision. Do I want to shoot this gap and destroy this guy, or do I not want to shoot the gap and not destroy him, or whatever? So I can understand that, but it's the best angles to film paintball from, in my opinion, are oftentimes the gaps between like the primary bunker for the midfielders on both sides to the corners. Like that zone is so good to film, and they just have like this exclusive right to film from there, on the pro field or whatever. And I think that's really stupid.
Yeah, that sucks. I think about this a lot because I'm like, would I stand on the back line
If you
to
could, yeah,
try
who
and get that
knows?
shot? And I'm like, I don't know if I would because I mean, you're just getting
But
obliterated.
if you
And
had
you're
more
just,
space,
oh my god, yeah, if they made the back line like local events, the back line you got like a foot or two. If you gave me 2 feet behind the start box, I'm golden.
Mm-hmm.
Paint drops obviously, so it's not going to be as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just space behind the back line would be amazing. I would film in the back line all day if I wasn't right up against the net. That's another thing. The net is constantly pushing you.
Mm.
You're constantly getting pushed by the net on some of those fields, so it's really hard to even try and attempt to film on there. But yeah, I forget what we were saying before that. But the
So
netting is
things,
annoying.
yes, so things that
Things
that you
that we
like about
like.
paintball, and
Yeah.
maybe some suggestions for how we can improve paintball.
I guess improves kind of a double-edged sword when I say this because paintball is very much paintball because of how gritty and douchey the players are.
Mm.
Most times, like people like seeing players get aggressive and are assholes and shoot people in the face and really get up there and talk shit and stuff like that, which is I love as somebody that films paintball. I love that. I've said it many times. I love when people get in each other's faces and shoot the shit out of each other. But I guess there needs to be a time and place for that. I think is what I would say. I think we need to do better about um, being those kinds of people in the right places. NXL events, I think, is fine doing that kind of stuff. But I think if you're, and it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of double-edged sword. I think I think a lot of it begins at woods ball. A
Mm.
lot of people start out woods ball and they'll find out about speedball after that. I know a lot of people that I can't stand that are woods ballers because there are a lot of asshole woods ballers out there, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
the worst kind of people to play against. They'll cheat, they'll yell at you, all kinds of stuff. They'll argue every time they get called out, stuff like that. I've shot a good amount of scenario events um, over my time. I definitely don't do it as much anymore, but I've shot a lot of scenario events, and seeing what some of the people do at scenario events would not make me want to go play anything else
Mm.
again. Especially speedball where people talk about cheating and stuff like that. But Obviously, or at least there's more refs on a smaller field to watch in speedball. But a kid isn't going to know that when they're playing woods ball. They don't even know what speedball is at that point.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it starts from even just like a rec day at the field playing on like plywood bunkers. I think a lot of it starts there. Just like don't be a dick. Like don't be douches to when there's younger people around. A lot of people bring their family. Their family comes out with their kids, and they're walking around. You watch a bunch of dudes walking around smoking weed and cursing up a storm, and all these kids around. They're like, I don't want my kid to be like that in 5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of it starts around the rec day and woods ball areas, and obviously when you have a new people coming out to speedball, you also don't want it to be like that. You don't want to be like that all the time. Obviously, weed and paintball go hand in hand. It is not something that you can get away from at this point. So I think even just trying to be less of that arrogant paintballer when you see kids around and when you're practicing and stuff like that, just try and be a little more conservative. Trying to think of conservative.
Mindful, conscientious.
Conscientious. That's what I was looking for. Be more conscientious about who's around you.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Obviously, it's really hard to do that when you're playing paintball because it's paintball. You're shooting each other.
Yeah.
So you're just in an aggressive mindset right off the bat. Once you get to the field, you're like, okay, I'm gonna shit on somebody today, and stuff like that. So it's a very hard mindset to get out of. But I think it really starts when those younger kids are around, especially families too. I'm sure if my mom saw how some of the players acted back in the day, like she never went to paintball with me.
Yeah.
But if she saw how some of the players acted, I don't know if she would have let me keep going.
I agree.
I guess it starts with a good field too. If you have a field with good staff that don't let people do that shit, that's like Thornton Paintball was a really good field around me. It was owned by a family, and like his backyard, he had a giant woods ball field in his backyard. It was ran by him and his brother and his wife and stuff like that. And they were like the nicest people ever. And they ran a really good field. They did fair games, and they didn't let people like be dickheads and stuff like that. So that really gave me a really good taste in my mouth about paintball. I think over the years playing there, I met some cool people there, and that's really where I think I fell in love with paintball was playing at that woods ball field. So who knows what would have happened if I ran into like somebody that I didn't like or somebody that was a really huge asshole.
Yeah.
Would have turned me off right away, kind of thing. So, and not just like the overshooting thing. Like I probably got overshot a couple of times, and I was like, yeah, whatever. But a lot of people probably wouldn't, be like, whatever, and come back.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that fucking hurt. I don't want to do that again. So, it's another thing to be mindful of.
Yeah, depending on how early in your experience you get overshot, it can really deter people, or how old you are.
Yeah.
Right. But I did want to get your thoughts on some suggestions that I've heard for how we can improve paintball. The first thing, I'm a big proponent of this, and I want to know what you think. I think we should always have bright shelled paint because it makes viewing the sport and filming the sport so much better. And I think it's also more enjoyable to play. Like I grew up playing indoor paintball, and depending on what shell you got, it was either miserable because you just couldn't see anything, or it was like marginally okay. But especially with like the strobe lights that, inevitably happen in indoor fields, it was terrible. Yeah. But like going outside and shooting like bright colored paint for the first time, I can still remember what that was like. That was awesome. And I really enjoy shooting bright colored paint, even though obviously it makes it easier to see the paint and dodge it and stuff like that. But I actually think that's to the credit of this idea, which is that like you have the ability to go under streams, you have the ability to back out from a lane that's falling short and then run around it. And I think that's cool to see, because then people start getting more creative. But I want to know what your thoughts are on that. What do you think? Should we have more bright colored paint?
I mean, shit, if we could have it, I'd love to have glow in the dark paint. Just something that'll make it easier to see.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you've been to an NHL event, we're playing sometimes till it's dark because they can't fucking keep up with their field. So, anything that would be easier to see, whether it's on film or just playing wise, I think is better all around for everybody.
So
I agree 100%.
What do you think about NXL Europe's idea of limiting paint? Now, I know from a business perspective, that would have a lot of people very pissed off.
Yeah.
But just from a player perspective and a spectator perspective, do you think that would improve the sport if you limit it to like 4 or 5 pods? Or maybe some people have suggested that you have a certain number of team pods that you can decide which of your players gets those pods and stuff like that.
I wish I had the chance to watch more limited to paint format because I don't know if I've ever actually filmed limited paint from what I remember. I don't think we ever had it around here,
Did
and
you
I don't
watch
think
Astra?
NXL.
Because that was limited paint.
Yes, I watched the first two so far. I think I know I watched the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those things that could be. It's gonna go both ways. It's gonna be good and bad because I think. I don't think players are gonna like it as much.
Hmm.
In my head, like I don't know. I think spectator wise it might be a little better, but I think it all depends on the layout again. If you have a layout where you can it's shit. Yeah. If you have a layout where you can sit and shoot paint,
Yeah.
whether you have 2 pods or 7 pods, you're still gonna sit there and shoot paint. You might move a little bit. You might move sooner, but I think you're still gonna spend that first minute or two shooting those two pods, and then when you have a hopper left, you're gonna go.
Mm.
Like I said, it's gonna make you move sooner, but I think it kind of depends on the layout. Because then if you get a slow layout, you're gonna sit there and shoot one ball at each other for a minute until somebody gets in. You're gonna run out of paint quicker. Um, so I don't think the paint. I don't think the paint's the option. I think it's the layout more so than the paint. I think the layouts need to be better, and then think about paint after that. Um, but I mean, paint. I think paint could make players move faster. I think it won't be as much of a lockdown game. But even now, when you're watching NXL events, I don't. There are events where I think I forget what layout it was this year where it would just lock down after like the first body dropped on each team, and then teams would just sit.
I almost want to
And
say it was MAO, but I didn't play that event, so.
it might have been Philly from what I remember. But then you had the last layout where teams were being super aggressive and everybody's got 8 pods on their back, but they're still moving up the field
Yeah.
super quick because of that snake in the D side wedge. You could go under it and just hide and go right up to the 50 Dorito. So that's a prime example of having a ton of paint to shoot, but nobody sat and shot 8 pods
Yeah.
because the layout was great. We've had layouts where players are bringing 12 pods to the home because they sit there and shoot the entire time. And that's because they had the layout to do it. So I think layout's your biggest problem as far as perspective and trying to get players to be more aggressive and stuff like that, or just make it more entertaining. I think layouts come first, then paint.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would be curious to know what, like, if we were able to run this experiment of limiting paint for a couple of seasons, I wonder how layouts would change to accommodate for that. I don't know what that would look like, but I would be interested to see if gaps become much wider, if we add less bunkers, the bunkers are smaller, or whatever the case is, because I think we could get back to that if that was to change. I mean, you could do it without needing to do that, but I think the other issue, and I think one of the reasons why, at least in my mind, I would like to try it, I think there is very much so, like, paintball is a weird sport in that it seems to bring the most degenerate groups of people together,
100%.
but they also need to have a lot weird, which is like really not the same.
Yeah, that weird like the trade guys that are like carpenters, like HVAC guys, and
electricians, like, and all this.
Yeah,
stuff.
like just G-gen enough to like get away from their girlfriend on the weekend to go play paintball for a day.
Yeah.
So I totally understand where that comes from. But another thing about limiting paint would, I guess, be the money part. You could save a lot of money for teams, which could bring more people in. Not so much the person that has the expendable income on the weekends.
Disposable, but yeah.
Disposable. There we go. You could get a lot more people, I think, into it. But then at the same time, I mean, if you do limited paint everywhere, woods ball players, limited paint, speedball practices, limited paint, they're probably going to just upcharge the paint.
Yeah.
Because they're not selling as much. So there's really there's no good side to limiting paint because fields are just going to upcharge if they realize they're not making as much money. So now your $60 a case weekend for a woods baller now went up to 80, and your discount that you got that was 35, now you're paying 55 on a normal day, and now that's going to be your normal paint price. So
yeah,
no matter what, limiting paint, you're still going to pay probably the same amount because fields are not going to be able to live without that. So
it would have to be accompanied by an uptick in the player base, because that would be the only way to offset that. Because I agree, if all you did was limit paint and the player base didn't increase, then we would be paying for that. We would.
There's no more discounts for teams
exactly.
anymore.
that would hurt us a lot. But if we were able to make it more accessible because it's more affordable, you then have the opportunity to invite more people to come try it out at the very least, right?
Yeah,
and I think
that would take so much time to get that player base up to where you can sustain a field. So you'd have to upcharge for a little bit, and then a year or two later, you might be able to bring it back down, but it's not going to
If
happen
we can
right
just
away.
get it back to 2005, 2007, like that
If we
era.
just put fucking signs out on the roads near
It's
events,
true.
we would
It's
get so
true.
many more people. That's all I'm saying. That's the answer to everything. Just signs.
Okay, well let's move on to a couple more things and then we'll be done here. I've taken about an I said I wanted 30 to 45
Oh,
minutes.
dude, you're take as much time as you want. Trust
Okay,
me.
we're an
I
hour
love
and
talking shit about
26.
paintball.
Okay, that's good. We're an hour and 26 into this. So, but I do have just a few more questions that I'd really love to get your opinions on. So let me see. Okay, here's a couple. Again, what would you? This is going back to your insights into paintball more than the broad thing of paintball. But if you had a player that came up to you that was just starting out, what advice would you give them? Don't, and it can't be don't play paintball.
Starting out playing, right?
Yeah,
For the first time, like, okay.
Yeah, well, like let's say they've even played they've played a decent amount of rec ball and they're about to go play their first tournament.
First, I would say get rid of that fucking rental mask and go put on this real one. Because too many people are playing with rental masks out there. Rental masks literally ruin the experience of paintball. It's happened to me, because I'm sure everybody has dealt with this. When you first go play paintball, that thing fogs up on your face. You're like, is this how everybody plays? It's awful.
It's terrible.
I don't want to play like that. It's all fogging up in there. You can't see a goddamn thing. And then next thing you know, you're never playing paintball again because it was stupid. You can't see anything. So yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is get yourself a good mask. Trust me, it's way more enjoyable. I think everybody should start off with a good mask. It's really something the field should really invest in, because that really does ruin the experience. A bad gun you can live with. It's easy to fix, but a bad mask just ruins everything as far as what I remember. And like when I take my nephews out too, it's also really bad. Like when I used to take them out and I didn't have masks to give them.
Well, you've got plenty in the background. I was gonna say.
So, I can start 2 new dynasty lines back there with all the masks I have. But yeah, just like rental equipment, get rid of it, get some good stuff. Would probably be my first thing if I see they don't have it. Especially the mask would be number one. Gun can come way later. And then just try and find. I guess the next biggest thing would be try and find, like, other than the actual playing thing, which I'll get into, try and find a place or people that you really like playing with. Like, don't keep going to a shit field if you don't like it. Go try and find. I know there's not a lot out there, especially nowadays with after COVID and everything. But just try and find a field you really like going to. I think that's another big thing. A shitty field can really ruin it for a lot of people too, especially a field that doesn't care, like has staff refs that don't care and just watch your kid get blown up and stuff like that. So going to a field that you like, the people that you like, and even just playing with your friends. You can go to a shit field, but you're playing with your friends. It'll make it a lot better. So try and find people that you actually play with, that you enjoy playing with. And then as far as playing goes, just don't get used to getting shot. Like have somebody shoot you. If you're scared of getting shot, have somebody shoot you a couple times. Just get used to it. Even if it's you get shot once every day before you play, just get used to that sting so that you're not sitting behind a bunker the whole time and you're like, this is stupid again because I'm not doing anything. I'm just shooting into the air half the time. So, try and get out of that fear as soon as you can. Once you do, you'll be running down other 10-year-olds, not putting 7 into their back, but just shooting them once in the back. And you'll be enjoying yourself a lot more. I was scared for a while when I first started playing. I was just blind firing like this over my bunkers. I had no idea what I was shooting. I was hitting the refs half the time. So
I'm sure they love that.
Yeah. So try not to be that guy. So just try and get out of that fear right away.
Yeah, I actually, looking back, the time between 13 and 17 for me was a lot of anxiety related to paintball. Like going to I remember thinking a lot about how anxious I was to get destroyed, right? To go play against the teams or the players that I knew were better than me that were just going to run me to the ground and all this stuff. And I mean, I got shot a lot, but there was still just some anxiety about, and I actually talk about this in a video I've made where I feel like you can make so many leaps and bounds in your play if you just let that go. If you let go of the worry of getting destroyed, run to the ground, getting shot up a lot. And whether it's like you said, get shot before, like once or twice before you actually go play your first point, or what it is for you. For me, I just found that like a lot of that anxiety came because of like this performance anxiety where I felt like I needed to prove myself or my skill to other people. But the moment that I decided like I don't care, like if I lose to a D5 player, it doesn't matter. Like, cause I'm going to learn from that. At least I hope I learn from that. But a lot of the anxiety came from trying to be better than people that were actually just better than me and not letting that process just work itself out. Like, just show up to practice, work on the fundamentals. Over time, those players, you'll either get better than them or you'll at least get as equally skilled as them. But allow yourself to go through that process. And if you find yourself in that mindset, practice is not scary anymore. Like getting shot, going to tournaments, it's not scary anymore. I mean, maybe you are a little anxious to get shot because you were trying to remember what that sting is like. But man, if I could give myself any sort of advice when I was starting out, it would be, yes, get used to getting shot, but also don't try to prove yourself to other people. Like you don't have anything to prove. Just go through the process of getting better.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. Try and go out there for yourself, not for other people.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people that I feel like paintball, what I remember 2007 to 2009 paintball was a lot of like the ag culture was literally came about because people were trying to look cool while they played. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's less, it's still there today, but it's way less prominent than it is now than it was back then.
Oh, that's another thing that you reminded me of. Another thing that I hate about paintball. Everything's so fucking corporate now. You see these jerseys sometimes that look like they came off a Kohl's line of clothes. Like, dude, come on, man. If you look back at pictures from like 2009, they had stickers all over hoppers. We had like really sick jerseys with like all kinds of shit on the
Rockstar
arms.
Energy and Dynasties jerseys.
And it's not like we don't have good companies to throw logos onto, but it's just like nobody has style anymore. Everything's the same.
I'm sorry, HK Army.
Everybody's got the basic jerseys. Yeah, even HK was like the king of like those kinds of things back in the day. Now everything's just so corporate. Everything looks the same.
Yeah,
it's really bad. There's no more style in paintball. There's some style. I mean, you can maybe have style on your head, but everything under your head is nothing. Like there's nothing there as far as style goes. So it's just everything's very dull looking.
I agree.
Another thing that I hate, but
Desert Man, I still have my desert camo JT pants, and those things are like, man, those things are nice.
I miss heavy padding. Heavy padding made for some good looks back in the day. Maybe not the pants, but those tree trunks jerseys were sick.
Yeah, we call them tree trunks.
One more thing about style was the D5 thing. Just like knowing how to wear your gear is a big skill gap that I see as well. It's also a skill. Being able to wear your gear the right way is definitely something that I notice a lot less in D5. Especially when you're walking around with giant gaps in your headgear.
You can see
somebody tell this man, somebody tell this man that he needs to pull his headband down or just fill his pod a little more so he stops shaking all the way down the field. Happens a lot in D5 too. But
and I think that
covers the last two.
I think that goes back to your comment of how we can improve paintball. Is just be that helping hand, man. Like
try and be that guy that actually helps players too.
Yeah,
I definitely don't do it as much as I should, especially like when it comes to other photographers and videographers. Like I try to help when I can, but there's always something I could be doing more of to help other people. The same thing goes for playing. Try and help when you can. So.
And be willing to, and on the opposite end of that, be willing to receive that criticism, because I think part of the reason we don't help each other in paintball is because there is a lot of arrogance and ego in the sport. And so people like, that's the one thing that, again, just as from a personal level, that I try to make sure everybody knows about me. If you think that there's something I can do better, or if I've been a jerk or whatever, I am always willing for somebody to come and tell me, because I don't want to be a jerk. I want to improve. So I think the reason why like we've fast tracked as a squad, arguably, again, we're not performing in semi-pro, but I think generally speaking, why we have at least a lot of people hyping us up is because we're willing to learn. We're willing to come up to, we get asked to go scrimmage against Seattle Thunder now quite a bit because we are willing to learn. We're humble. We're not going out there to try and prove that we're better than Seattle Thunder, because we're not, And so I think the sport of paintball would do well to have that holistically applied. Like, how about everybody come with this attitude of like, hey, you got something to say to me? Please give me that feedback. I would appreciate it to get better. If I'm saying something that, I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of my monologue about that. But
yeah, it's probably another big problem is people not being willing to accept other people's takes on their play style and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I'll say this, and this might be a hot take, but like there are sometimes I am very surprised that there are some players or teams that do as well as they do in Division 2 and in some cases semi-pro with some of the mechanics that they have, like the way that they
Yeah.
hold their guns or the way that their snap shooting form is. Like I just am like blown away that, I mean, again, they're successful teams, more successful than we are, but it's also like, how, like, this is going to be a roadblock for you if you don't fix this. And I would like to
Right.
tell you to fix this, but that's not, you're going to just throw your APPA rank back in my face or your team's
Yeah.
placement back in my face. And that's kind of sad to me. I wish that we were less like that. I wish that, you know, even divisional players could come up to a pro player or whatever and say, hey, like, I really liked this, but I, you know, just so you know, this is a thing that I noticed. That's just a
Mhm.
hypothetical, but you get what I mean, right?
Dude, it's like every Disney movie back in the day. Like every paintball team is the bad guy in a Disney movie where like like they win and then the losing team comes up. It's like, hey, good game, man. Like, yeah, don't talk to me, loser. That's like every high end paintball team that's like really well, except for like excluding a few maybe, are like always the evil Disney people. They just like
That's
don't give a
true.
shit, don't want to hear the other little people that they just beat, kind of thing.
That's
That's how
true.
I think about it.
That's true. Well, let me ask you then a couple questions about what are your short-term goals for your YouTube channel, and then after I want to know what your kind of future goals. What do you hope to do with your channel?
Um, I mean, I kind of have a goal. It was never really a goal because I didn't set out on making this channel because I wanted it to become what it is now. I was just like, I really like filming. I love playing paintball, so I just wanted to do something with those two combined. So I just started uploading. I guess movie making, you know, is as close to movie making as I can get was a big part of starting the channel too. I never really expected anybody to actually watch, especially because paintball was shit. As far as sports go, it wasn't a big sport. Still isn't a big sport.
Yeah.
Um, so I never really set out on the goal of making something that people would watch. It was always just something to put out for myself in the beginning. And then once it started growing, I guess my goals kind of changed. I set goals for myself um, to hit certain milestones and try and make better content and make content that I think other people would watch. So um, that's kind of where my goal shifted to. And now it's more so, I guess, short term would be, I guess, just to kind of get the audience growing more. I
Hmm.
guess would be the short term goal. Just getting more people to see it. Obviously, if you look at PB Nation, it's a big problem because if you look at PB Nation, HK Army, I mean, they were getting like 1 million views in their videos back in the day. PB Nation has a ton of subs. So it's hard. There's a big gap between like the big paintball channels, and there's nothing in between.
Yeah.
Just those channels that were there in the beginning, a couple channels in the middle that died off. That were starting after 2010 and stuff like that. After paintball started declining, and then you have like the newer channels that are starting up now, in the past like 5-ish years, um, that have still continued to upload, or even new channels today that are continuing to upload now. So I guess short term would just be, yeah, to grow the channel as much as I can. And then I mean short term I would love to make this my job. Like not
Hmm.
just this, but like just something around maybe filming paintball when I can. And then yeah, but I guess that's why I started the membership thing. I just want to try and make this more of a career option rather than um rather than just a side hobby because this takes up a lot of time. This takes up more time than my 9 to 5 does. This is
I'm sure.
it's a lot of work to put in to filming events, doing teams at events, doing their work first, then doing YouTube content, then trying to put YouTube content out every week. Um, yeah, I've put so much more time into this than I have in any 9 to 5 job,
Hmm.
and even in my current 9 to 5 job, this is way more work than I've ever put into anything. Um, so it just sucks that it's something that doesn't get paid.
Yeah.
Like I get paid, but I don't get paid. So
It's
especially
definitely
for the
not
amount of
enough
time I put
compensation,
in.
I'm sure, for how much
No,
work you put in. So,
no. I mean, combining YouTube with like I've keep track of everything I've made in a year between YouTube, um, booking teams, sponsors when I get them, random payments from other things like people just like giving me a tip or something.
hmm.
And I haven't come close to making a living salary at
Hmm.
all.
Hmm.
So And I mean, like I said, I put more work into this than I have anything else in my entire life. So time, not just time, but just like energy
You
and
hear
everything
that,
else.
kids? Get into paintball YouTube
Yeah.
content. It's worth it.
It's just, yeah, I'm not gonna discourage you from doing it, but I'm gonna tell you it's really fucking hard.
Oh, for
And you're not gonna
sure.
make a living. You're not gonna make a living off of it. Not in
Yeah.
paintball. So, but yeah, long term goal, I would love to do something where I can tie, even if it's just something on this, even if paintball's still on the side, I would love to just not have a normal 9 to 5 and be able to go film and do um, what I like doing. So this would be a part of that, hopefully in the future. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, hopefully you're not too far away, but I think doing stuff like this, I think helps. You know, I can't say how grateful I am that you were willing to, first of all, that you came across my channel and that we got connected.
Pleasure's all mine. Shut up.
But I really
You're
do.
putting way more knowledgeable content out there than I am.
Well,
People can learn from you.
I appreciate that. But I do think that there needs to be this kind of rah come to Jesus moment with paintball if we want to make it as good of a sport as we all think it is. You know, I think people need to work more together. We need to be reaching out more. I do think paintball has the potential to do that. Some of the most amazing people I have met are through paintball. Like,
oh yeah, all my friends are in paintball.
yeah,
I don't have any friends outside of paintball really. So
yeah, so I don't know what the secret formula is. I think we're on the right path, hopefully. But I do think supporting people, you know, supporting you when you post videos. You know, if you've got, I try to tell people who watch me on stream, hey, like, tell your teammates about me. Like, if you guys if you guys are learning from what I'm sharing, share that information with your teammates and get them on here. Cause I actually tell that to my teammates now. Nothing gets me more upset than spending 6-10 hours on a video that goes into like this really in-depth concept of paintball IQ. And then for my teammates to come up to me at practice and be like, hey, how do I do this thing? And it's like, dude, do you not watch anything I make? Like, do you have such little respect for me and what I have to say online that you don't watch this? So that to me is surprising. But I do think that first of all, anybody that's here is already doing that. But I think if we can encourage others to support people, just watch content, like consume the content of the sport you love the most. I think that would be really, really a good place to start. And then reach out to people that you see need help. Because I know that there's a lot of people, especially with COVID, who are going through a really hard time that are pulling away from paintball, which is at this point one of the only things that brings them joy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's really hard to find that balance because paintball is so expensive. But at least creating a community where we reach out to people, I think, is a good place to start to help paintball grow and become bigger, and continue to, you know, hopefully one day make it something you can do full time. Yeah. But because that would be, I mean, I don't know how far away you are from that, but I look at a channel like you and Yosh Designs also comes to mind. You guys are the gold standard, in my opinion, of paintball sideline footage, like raw footage. And I think you guys will become the gold standard of other ventures that you go down. You know, I did like your reacting to older videos. I thought that was really interesting because I think there's this lost, you know, legacy to be told for people. You know, there's a lot of players who have come to paintball in the last several years that don't know anything about, what is that video, Danny Manhattan or whatever, that famous
Danny Manhattan one,
yeah, like that. Oh my gosh, what an amazing video, and the story behind that is just so crazy. But I
talked to Yosh Designs and he said he doesn't know what that video is. I said, you're not a fucking videographer if you don't know what that video is. Yeah, I found that out like at it was with the last event. I asked him and he's like, I don't know what that is. I'm like,
that blows my mind.
Yeah, I'm like, you're not a real videographer. Get away from me.
That's surprising. But I want to move on then really quickly to I want to do at least like 10ish minutes of Q&A from the chat, if that's okay. And then I'll give you a chance to shout out your socials, your services, obviously, and any final thoughts you have. But it's going to take me a second to look through here. So if you guys have already posted comments or questions, please just repost them, because I don't want to scroll through chat. That's going to be a nightmare. So feel free to ask your questions right now. If you have any for either me or Soulless, ask Soulless. I'm here all the time. So
I already had to listen to my rambling for the last hour.
No, this has been awesome. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
It's been great. I love talking about paintball, whether it's the good shit or the bad shit. You know,
for sure.
It's always enjoyable.
The new layout comes out tomorrow, isn't that right?
Yeah, I think that's what I've heard.
Okay, because it usually drops on Wednesdays. So So it looks like B minor has some questions. I'm not sure
Oh,
if
of
these are
course,
gonna,
he's still here.
I'm not sure if
Brandon,
these are
shouldn't
gonna
you
be.
be in bed with your kids? Like, what's going on, man? It's late for you.
These might be troll, but we'll find out. One, if you could change one rule in the NXL rule book, what would it be?
Oh, one rule?
First of all, you got to know what those rules are then.
I feel like I know the rules more than the fucking refs do.
I'm sure you do, actually.
Um, God, one rule.
There's some good questions coming in too, so this is great.
Trying to think of a rule that I don't like. There really aren't any rules that I don't like. Like I like the swing point rule for a dirty hang under 60 seconds. I like how minors and majors are assessed. If you shoot a player, if you don't shoot a player, I just don't like the people assessing them because they don't know what they're doing half the time.
Yeah.
So it's not really the rule that's the problem. Yeah, I don't honestly don't think there's a rule I would change. If it is, if there's something I would change, it's a very small rule. Maybe like the shouting from the pit or something, like giving a minor, which it rarely ever happens anyway. Another example of a ref not doing their job. But
Yeah.
I mean maybe that just because like it's not a rule, but I want some kind of energy in a match again. Like not sideline coaching, but I want some kind of cheering. I wish you could
Yeah,
cheer.
that seems
Families can't
really
cheer,
silly.
which happens a lot on the sideline. Families cheer, and then the ref's like, "Can you please wait till the end of the point?" kind of thing. Which I understand why, but like,
Yeah.
you know, there's just no energy around playing a match anymore. You know, you get cheers after the buzzer from your pit, but I mean, other than that, it's just kind of like the same thing over and over and over again. So it'd be nice to see a little bit more energy from and taking away a rule of no sound during a match kind of thing.
What? Just real quick, one thing I would like changed, but I don't know if this would work. There is so much anxiety around chronoing your gun right before the point starts.
Oh, the chrono.
I actually feel like
yeah.
there needs to be some way that we can put our guns in a designated part of the pit where maybe there's like a ref or a staff member that observes those guns and sees that people aren't changing it, and then periodically chronos those guns. But
yeah, not every gun every time.
Yeah, but not every gun, not every time. And I think it needs to be done before the next point starts so that you can just walk out onto the field. Because, first of all, if you're only going to give us 60 seconds to walk from pit to the opposite side of the field, and we have to chrono and those refs are not standing right there.
There's not a lot of time.
Then you have to sprint, and it's like, this isn't really fair. I feel like there needs to be something changed about that. So in my mind, it would be put guns in like we already have a chrono station. Put guns in a place where there's a staff member watching it or something, obviously making sure nobody steals anything, but that chrono it when the temperature changes, like if the temperature changes, obviously you're going to need to chrono the gun, but otherwise, like, it doesn't really, like, it's not going to change that much. And so, and any sort of variations that you see are always silly. It's like, oh, I hit 302, like shoot again. Oh, 300, shoot again, 197. It's like, if every person has to shoot 3 balls, first of all, the Pro Division does not do that. Like, they chrono, but they're like, I don't care what it is. And the refs don't care what it is, it seems. So that to me is pretty dumb, but that would be the rule I would change. So.
You reminded me too, I fucking hate split deck.
Do you?
Just a little tangent, I hate split deck. It's god awful.
I actually like split deck, but
it's good for time. It's awful for storytelling.
Oh, for sure. I agree with you on that. I totally agree. I'm going to come back to you, B Minor, and ask Elite Bros question, but you've got some great ones here, so I'll come back in a second. Who do you think is going to be relegated and who is going to move into pro?
Well, after the debacle from Sunday's video that you can see now on the Soulless Photography YouTube channel, I think NL Hurricanes are probably going to take it unless they pull a big fluke and do not place in the top 10, because I think they have to place out of the top 10. Yeah, I think they have to place out of the top 10 to not take first. So I think NL Hurricanes are probably going to take it. And I think from what I remember, AC Dallas is pretty close to being at the bottom, but I think it's level currently.
No, I think you're right. I think AC Dallas is in the bottom.
Right, AC Dallas is because of the revamp and yeah, I mean, I think AC Dallas, but I've heard rumors that another team is folding from the Pro Division, so there might not be anybody leaving.
Oh, really?
Very slight rumors that a team might be folding.
Hot take? You got rumors for us, or you want to keep? I mean,
I actually think I literally saw it in like Paintball Talk by Cell as like a quick thing when I was like scrolling Facebook, because people were talking about who's
the most trustworthy source of information.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I post all my news too. Everybody will believe it. So yeah, I think if anything, it's either going to be AC Dallas or whoever is in 19th.
Sure.
If a team doesn't fold, it's going to be AC Dallas most likely.
I think is it MO Kings?
I forget that they're even a team, honestly. Like that they're still playing pro because I don't
Mm,
ever see them. Obviously, because I don't watch
yeah.
paintball much.
Hmm.
Um, God, I keep thinking of things that I hate about paintball, and I keep being reminded. But Go Sports had a fucking paywall, and I can't film a fucking thing on the pro field and post it.
Yeah,
Hate that.
that's really
I have no content other than divisional shit because I can't post anything pro.
yeah.
I
But
hate it.
hey, if you get a monopoly on, I mean, there's also nobody covering divisional stuff because Go Sports,
I
except for
know.
their minor events, doesn't cover it. So,
Yeah.
but okay, next question. Why don't more photographers, videographers collab more often? I mean, that's an interesting.
Um, I guess it's kind of hard to do. I don't want to sound. I'm trying to make this sound not douchey. It's hard to find people that I like their footage enough to collab with
Mm.
without trying to sound like a huge asshole.
There's a quality
Because
assurance thing you're after.
I'm very picky about the way my footage looks. So that's why I stand in the corners because I don't like standing in the center of the field at all.
Mm.
I like seeing where a player is shooting as much as I can. Obviously, it doesn't always work out because of how layouts and how they set up the field and netting and stuff like that. But I like a very certain angle and look. So if I don't have that from somebody else, there's really nothing that I would want to shoot with them. Like I could tell them to stand in the corner, but it's like, and I can see it in people's footage. I can tell that your camera's not steady. You're not following what's happening. You're not switching when you should be, that kind of thing, or you're moving around too much, stuff like that. So like I watch other people. I watch a lot of other people's footage when I can, because especially if it's a new person, I'm like, oh cool, this person could be really good. One Click Nick Photography was one guy that I didn't even know um, was a videographer, but then I saw his footage for the video that I put out on Sunday, and I used his footage in it because I was like, okay, this footage is actually good.
Mm-hmm.
It was usable and it got exactly what I needed. So I did collab with somebody on Sunday's video. Um, but the biggest reason is probably we're all very narcissistic. We all
Mm.
like what we shoot. We all like the way we shoot. So there's not really a need to collab as much. I do collab as much as I can. I work with Fava Photography a lot.
Sorry,
Um,
who?
Fava
Oh,
Photography,
okay,
George
okay,
Fava.
okay.
He shoots for Eclipse. He does all their photos for Eclipse.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Um, and their videos. So if you see all the Eclipse videos for the certain teams, he shot all that and did
Hmm.
all that. So Fava Photography and me did the infamous finals video, which came out right before Chicago, I think, or at the Chicago event. That's on Eclipse's channel if you haven't seen it. It's
I think
infamous
I've seen
versus
so.
infamous versus Impact in the finals. I worked with him on that video, and two other videographers helped us too with that. So four of us collabed for that video. So it does happen, but it's not often. And the closest thing to collabing that you don't see a lot because it's behind the scenes, but it's a lot of us talking to each other and saying, hey, this team wants photos and video. I'll do photos if you want to do videos. Like we'll collab that way.
Hmm.
But as far as seeing the content where we're collabing together, you can't really do that with photography. You can't collab with somebody on photography because it's hard to combine two people's things for like a team or like a shoot or something like that. You're going to see it more so in videography, if anywhere. Which videography it does happen. Yosh Designs and
Dylan Film Edit,
Dylan,
the
yeah,
place for things.
Dylan Fout, Place for Things collabed on the Astra event.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's happening a lot. It's always been happening in paintball. It's just the right people, the people have to find each other and they have to like each other's style to actually collab. So it doesn't happen as much, but it does happen.
Hmm.
If you ever are interested to see if people collab, always check the video descriptions or like the end of the videos. Usually we'll always post if we're working with somebody or who the actual person was that shot it and stuff like that. So
Hmm. Yeah,
it does
that's interesting.
happen.
That's interesting. Maybe it's just a process of elimination. You know, like you said, you have found people that you do collaborate with, but maybe it's just more people. I think the viewers would all appreciate if videographers and photographers looked for more opportunities to collab with each other. But it sounds like you do.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah, I try to when I can. Like I love working with other people. It just has to be the right fit,
yeah, for
I
sure.
think. So
His next question: what's the hardest part of doing what you do that others take for granted?
time.
Yeah.
A lot of time. I'll give you an example. I didn't mention this yet, but I used to spend a lot of time um editing, a ton of time. And then I kind of, after the Philly event, I got really burnt out for a couple months. I didn't want to touch paintball at all. I didn't want to go to ICC, and I went anyway
Mm.
because my friends were going that I hadn't seen in a while. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to ICC. I filmed like 2 points at ICC, and I didn't do a goddamn thing after that because I was just so over it. So um, I'm kind of in a weird place where I'm like, I'm kind of burnt out, but I'm also kind of not because I can't wait for World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Because a bunch of media guys got a house. Like there's like 20, 15 of us that get a house for a cup
Oh, that's awesome.
every year. So we all stay together. So that's really cool. Um, but yeah, definitely time. Like I would come home after work. I'd get home at 7, and I would edit till, I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock, and then maybe do that 4 nights out of the week, and then Friday I'd be dead
Oh my gosh.
and edit for like an hour, and then say I fucking hate this job, and then I wouldn't edit at all on Friday, and then I'd spend about 12 hours on Saturday editing, and then I would go to paintball on Sunday and either film or play. That was my job. That was me for a while. Now it's a little bit more calmed down. Now I'm only spending like 3.5 hours a night instead of 4 hours a night editing.
Oh, okay. Big difference.
And then I've taken a lot of Sundays off. Like I don't do anything on Sundays a lot. Most of the time I don't even go to practice unless we're playing an event coming up. And so like Saturdays I'm still really invested in editing. Like I spent all day Saturday editing Sunday's video that came out last week. And then trying to work on other projects too, while editing stuff that's supposed to be out. So yeah, just time is the biggest thing that people really take for granted. It's I'm sure you've realized how much, even just streaming in general, which is why I don't stream anymore, because I don't have time for it. It's just, I used to stream editing, but it's just a lot to keep up with, and I don't always want to be at my desk when I'm editing. I like to get up and do other things.
That's hard. It's hard to be streaming. on emotionally while editing, because sometimes it's nice to just mindlessly go through the motions. So,
and then I like doing other stuff while I edit. Like I'll have a show on, or I'll do other things on my second monitor. So I can't do that on stream. So
other things.
Yeah, it's a lot of dedication and a lot of time to put in that a lot of people probably don't realize. It's my any free time I have after work. On top of a 9 to 5, it goes to editing. So yeah, it's a lot.
What's his last question is, what's one golden piece of advice to someone wanting to get into shooting paintball? Is his exact question. Shooting. So I assume filming paintball. That's what he's.
Yeah. So there's two things to think about. If you're doing photos, you have to. This is something that a lot of photographers try to tell every other photographer: is you need to get down to the player's level. You can't stand and take photos. Standing and taking photos is god awful. We all hate it when we see it, and we try to tell people to stop doing it as soon as we see it. We actually have a photographer group on Facebook where there's like 400 of us, and it's just a ton of media people that are getting into it, and like all the people that have been in it for a while. We usually try to we'll do like critiques on people's photos and stuff like that. And that group got started I think last year or maybe this year, I can't remember. So there's a bunch of us in there. So if you are interested in actually being a media person in paintball, you can join that. Just ask like a lot of media people. I'd say ask any media person. If they don't know about it, that would be weird. So if you're looking to start in paintball, you can start there. We usually try to help when we can. Just don't post shit. I'm just kidding. So yeah, get down to the player's level. If you know a player is diving into the snake, lay down at the snake beam and try and get him diving into the snake. It'll look much better. If a person is kneeling in the snake, get down on a knee and take the photo. Don't stand. It's like I said, it looks god awful. We know when it looks bad. And then if you're doing video, I would say you need to get a monopod or a tripod. I hate watching footage that is shaky. I can tell when you're not using something, and it pisses me off because I don't want to see shaky footage while I'm watching paintball. It's already hard enough to follow.
It's nauseating. It's so painful.
Yeah, and I guess another thing with videoing, I love using a towel. I have a towel on me all the time when I'm filming. It really helps protect my camera, protects me, keeps the sun off. There's a lot of different filming setups you can use, but a towel has really worked for me. It has its drawbacks, but it really helps protect everything and lets you stay in spots that you probably wouldn't be able to unless you really just don't care about getting ripped. But I love my towel. I have it every event. So those would be my biggest pointers.
Awesome. That's great. It looks like that is, Arking did mention Ron King, for anybody who knows, did mention that we should just, like you said, enforce the rules fairly when your comment is about the rule book. Apparently the rumors were related to Revo, but Play the Game podcast dispelled that. And then B Minor says, thanks for answering my questions, Matt, for the good of the content. Love you. Yes, thanks, B Minor, for this.
Brandon, I love you.
Thank you so much for your questions. That is going to do it for us here. Do you have any final things you'd like to say before you shout out your socials and where people can find you?
I guess just don't stop watching my channel if I don't post. That's all I can say. Don't I might not post all the time, but I try to post every week. But if I don't post for like 2 weeks, don't stop watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe so you actually see when I do post. I try to post every Sunday, but it's not always easy. So, especially with a normal job. So don't leave my channel if I don't post. But yeah, I mean, guess just thanks for anybody listening to me ramble this whole time. I hope you got something out of it, whether you're just somebody who watches paintball or you're a player. Hopefully you got something out of this whole conversation. And obviously thanks to you for having me on. This was, like I said, I love talking about paintball. People that actually, enjoy talking about paintball. So
yeah, no, that's no problem at all. I think I didn't check the viewership throughout most of the stream, but I think we had about 15-ish people tuning in, and this will become a YouTube video here pretty shortly, so cool. People will be able to see that there. But I'll make sure to have all of your socials linked down in the description of this video. But shout out your services. Let us know where people can find you online.
So I guess the main place is Soulless Photography on YouTube. That's where all the videos get posted. There's also a shorts channel, which is just called Soulless Shorts on YouTube, which is 60-second clips from matches. That's not uploaded as much. It's like a couple a month, maybe 3 a month, something like that. And then the mains, if you're trying to see like kind of behind the scenes things and just stuff that extra stuff, or just hear me talk shit about paintball or talk shit about people that comment on my videos, I do that on Instagram. So it's Soulless Photography on Instagram. I post on the stories a lot about just stuff I'm thinking about with paintball or upcoming projects, and a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to try and do more of that. But my phone is a piece of shit. My camera sucks, so I can't really post that much from that thing as far as behind the scenes goes. But you also get little clips from the matches from there. And I have a Facebook page for Soulless Photography, but that page sucks. Facebook blows.
It does.
For trying to promote business that you're not paying for. So, but I do have a Facebook page, but don't follow it because it sucks. And I think those are all the main channels. I would say definitely the YouTube and the Instagram are the main platforms that I post on. So if you're going to try and consume the content that I post, those are the 2 spots you want to go to, 100%.
Where can people reach out to hire you for an event?
The easiest place would be Instagram. That's where I get a lot of people hiring me, which is weird. And also Facebook's really big too. I get a lot of messages on Facebook. So yeah, I would say Instagram would be number 1, Facebook number 2. But don't message the photography page because I hate it, because YouTube sucks. Or sorry, not YouTube sucks. Facebook sucks with their business page. It's really hard to keep track of people messaging you, and
yeah, it is.
And their layout's awful. So if you're gonna message me, try and do it on my personal page or Instagram. Those would be best. So
awesome. Well,
and I am for hire at all NXL events. Mostly raw footage. That's about it. I do photos too every now and again, but I hate those.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to edit photos.
It does.
I'd much rather do raw footage. So I will shoot photos for your team, but it's not my favorite.
Awesome. Well, Matt, it was an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you coming on. We'll have to have
Love
you on again some other time, maybe for... I'm curious to see what the layout will look like. I do stream tomorrow, probably around 3 o'clock Mountain Time, and I'll be going over the layout then. But I would love to have a discussion with you, maybe recapping World Cup and getting your takes on it and seeing what you thought about that. So maybe we can have you on sometime around there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, on those, I'll be editing for 4 hours every night, but then in the middle of editing, I'd love to come on and
just
talk
a mental break. Mental break.
Yeah, we can watch the footage together and we can talk about World Cup and all the shit that I saw.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much, Matt. You have a good one, and good luck with your editing,
thank you.
Man.
Good luck with streams. Good luck with YouTube. I'm excited to see what you can do with all your channels. It'll be cool.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
See you, man.
See ya. Sweet. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Hold on. We got it. This is a bit.